You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the next Keep Canada Weird episode. If you're new here, Keep Canada Weird is an ongoing series in which my pal Aaron and I seek out and explore some of the most interesting Canadian news stories and topics from the last week. In tonight's episode, Aaron and I are going to discuss a rat problem in Newfoundland, we're going to take the Putin out of poutine, and we'll investigate two of Canada's greatest urban legends. Is Justin Trudeau the son of Fidel Castro? And did McDonald's buy Tim Hortons coffee beans? We'll answer those questions and a few more tonight, so let's get into it. Aaron Airport. It's Tuesday night, and that can only mean one thing.
What's about to get weird?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. How you doing?
Oh, good. Hanging in there, just taking her day by day.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do as well. Yeah. Is anything new with you? Is there anything going on in your neighborhood or your community or among your people?
My people.
Cape Bretoners.
Cape Bretoners, okay.
Yeah, or use people.
Who?
Use people, I think is what you would say if you're referring to a group of people from Cape Breton. Use people.
I thought you said news people.
Use people. Or yuz.
Yuz. What's going on with the buys kind of thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I don't have, just because I don't have Facebook, I really feel like I don't have any idea what anybody's up to.
Well, you're not
except
missing
for
much.
You.
We stay in touch.
Yeah.
But as someone who does have Facebook and who will leave the house on occasion, I'll tell you, you're not missing much. It's kind of a pretty grim wasteland everywhere outside of probably the room you're in right now.
It's
hard out there.
Yeah, which is why not having Facebook is good. I don't want to see everything. I just want to see what's happening in my day to day.
Yeah. This not having Facebook, is this like some kind of like protest, or are you one of those privacy nuts? Is there any story behind that?
I'm not a privacy nut. I have a cell phone. Anything that any government or organization wants to know about me has access to it. I've submitted to that.
Okay. So the Facebook is just nothing. You're not going.
It was a little too much information.
Okay.
A little too much just stuff.
I can respect that.
I was getting lost in it. I was just getting lost in it.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed not having it, but I don't know what anybody's up to.
Okay. It reminds me of my father-in-law. He was he had like a flip phone, cell phone, and it broke, and he needed to get a new one. And Mrs. Nighttime was trying to help him pick one out, and like a new replacement cell phone. And all the new phones like had advertised like, that had like all these different buttons, and you could do this and that. And he asked Mrs. Nighttime if this phone she was recommending did texting, and she's like, yeah, it does texting. And he's like, I don't want to get into that. And he didn't want the phone anymore. But anyway, so I guess texting to him is, I guess he wants to avoid what's happened to you with Facebook, but you were able to step away from it. So good on you.
I stepped away, and my account is officially closed.
Okay. So don't bother looking for it. Aaron stands.
Yeah. And feel free to add anyone with a similar name to mine and message them.
They're probably nice. Well, actually, there's a few Jordan Bonapartes. One is an African-American singer, so we look very different. And I actually thought about connecting with him and seeing if he wanted to come on the show and just kind of talk about life as Jordan Bonaparte, but that may still happen. But before we get into that, we're not going to get into that tonight. That may never happen. But before we talk...
Yeah, nor should it, I think.
Before we talk more about that, I want to get into some feedback we got from listeners. The most recent episode of Keep Canada Weird really got people fired up. So I'm going to go through a few of them here. And I think that some of these voicemails are going to take us in some interesting directions. But the first one is somebody who had a lot to say about our pizza eating habits. If you recall.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm glad we're back to this. All right.
So I said in the last episode, I like to fold it and eat it as like a really wide thing. I find it neater and more organized. I think you like to eat it like toppings down, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you misunderstood.
Okay.
I eat the toppings off. So I have the piece of pizza on a plate, and I pick the toppings off and eat them with my hand.
Oh, like a child.
Like a grown man. Mm-hmm. And until there are no toppings or cheese left, and then I eat the bread and sauce on its own. It's two separate things.
All right. Well, let's see how Rose does it.
Hi, Jordan and Aaron. It's Rose. I'm just calling about your last Keep Canada Weird episode. All of my comments, I guess, seem to be about food, so maybe I'm just hungry. Agree with Aaron completely about the pizza. It has to be eaten toppings first, cheese, then crust. I would even argue that there's a certain order that you eat the toppings in, but I won't go there. As for the Tim Hortons ice cream, I really don't care what label they slap on that tub. It's Shaw's ice cream inside, and Shaw's ice cream is fantastic.
Oh.
If you're ever in my home stomping grounds at Port Stanley, Ontario, stop in for an Elgin special. Go hungry, take a friend, and you'll thank me later. Keep up the good work, guys. Cheers.
She's from like the tourism department of Elgin.
She's a narc, man. She's a narc. Come on.
I think
she did exactly what she needed to do. Typical narc is blend in. So she's like, I'm calling about the pizza. I agree with the man who hates Tim Hortons that you should eat the toppings first. Also, the Tim Hortons ice cream is going to be great.
Visit my town.
And if you want to leave any comments with me, go to narc.ca.
No, I think she was from like the tourism department of that town. Did she not like Elgin, Ontario? Go hungry. And I was waiting for like a slogan or something.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll pretend she's not some,
Like, how about like a marketing sock puppet is how I would call that. That wasn't a real person. That was a Tim Hortons creation that wants to get free ad space on nighttime.
Yeah, there's a lot of troubling aspects to this feedback that this individual left. But let's pretend that it's genuine for a second. And I want to thank Rose, I think her name was, for her support on how to eat pizza properly.
That part you do agree with.
Yeah, I do. She got me.
Now, keep in mind that we just talked a little bit about Tim Hortons. This next voice memo is not going to like the way we've started this episode. Listen to this.
Hey, Jordan. Calling here from Winnipeg, the place with the longest record for paying it forward in a Tim Hortons drive-thru line. But really, I love the Keep Canada Weird podcast. It's probably the best thing you've done. But I feel it's kind of turned into this Tim Hortons is terrible podcast. And I'm fine with that. I think Tim's is awful, but at least let's be intentional about it. I'm sure we can get stories from many different listeners. For instance, I was a reference for a good friend of mine for her to get a job there. She got the job and now she's no longer my friend. Now, I don't know if it's related. It might be, probably. But seriously, I'm a little concerned how much you're talking about these Bieber balls. Is that what they're called? The Bieber balls? But seriously, maybe make this a regular segment instead of tossing it in at random. I think we could probably get a lot of listener content, a lot of listener stories about all the horror stories of Tim Hortons. Just my opinion.
So that was
I think that sounds like he wants less Tim Hortons and more Tim Hortons talk.
I think what
at the same time.
It's very specific. Colin wants, I believe, like a more organized approach to bashing Tim Hortons because he agrees. Like, yeah, it sucks, and there's a time and a place to bash it, and the place and time is on nighttime, every Tuesday night. But I think what he wanted is not so much like as we go through the show to just keep going back to like Tim Hortons is still sucking. I think he's like, have a segment bashing Tim Hortons. I will do that. So a call out right now to anyone out there who has a story about Tim Hortons. Maybe you work there and it was awful and you want to talk about it. Maybe you want to just talk about your favorite food items there, a bad experience you had there, they put cream in your tea instead of milk, whatever, reach out to us and I can.
Or even, well, let's go as far as to invite defenders who want to come on and challenge our opinions and our thoughts on Tim Hortons.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Let's debate this. Let's talk about it. Let's do this the right way. If every week we are going to give Tim Hortons a hard time, then we need to open it up to people who disagree.
I think people who like sound intelligent when they talk would say something like, we could have a dialogue.
Well, it's not going to be so much of a dialogue as it is you playing their voice memos and us completely crapping on them.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to call it a dialogue, though, just in that format.
We'll call it the Tim Hortons dialogue section of the show.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And it's good that we'll be able to say whatever we want, and then they won't be able to immediately defend their point of view.
Yeah. We got a full show tonight, so we got to move away from Tim Hortons, but I will say we are going to come back to it a little later, Colin. So
we are. Yeah.
You may want to turn it off now. We got a full course of topics tonight. We are going to revisit a topic from last week's episode. We are going to attempt to tackle two of Canada's greatest either mysteries, conspiracy theories, or I don't even know what else I'd call them, but two great Canadian questions. We are going to get into current world events. We are going to touch on the tragedy that's happening in Europe, but we are going to do it in a very Keep Canada Weird way. And then, yeah, I guess, that's it. But I think let's start with... I kind of have a plan for how this is going to go based on some things we have coming up. Let's start with a little bit about Ukraine and Russia, because as it happens, whenever there's an international event, somehow I find the Canadian media finds a way to make it local and gives them a way to cover it. That kind of happened in a unique way in Montreal that I want to tell you about. But first, it happened in Newfoundland as well. I don't know if you know about this, but there's a small-ish town in Newfoundland called Dildo. Do you know about dildos? Dildo, Newfoundland?
Do I know about dildos? Yeah,
Dildo.
I know about dildos. Yeah.
Dildo, Newfoundland, they have it's again a small town, and it's spelt just like it sounds, D-I-L-D-O. They have a sign for their town on a hill that just says Dildo, and it's designed to kind of look like the Hollywood sign. But what Dildo has done is they have it lit up the colors of like the Ukrainian colors, as a tribute to Ukraine. But I think what has happened is a Ukrainian TikToker caught wind of this and have like a viral video going around about, how thankful they are for what Dildo did for them. So there's that. That's one little thing. But and I saw actually two other stories that I want to bring up related to this. Is what's happening now, and I agree with this completely, is a lot of companies in countries and people are trying to find a way to, I guess, cut off Russia or distance themselves from Russia or not do business in Russia. That's really what we're going to be talking about, a story of a Montreal-based restaurant that decided to cut ties with Russia. But before we do, I want to bring this one up to you. I don't know if you know about this, but the International Cat Federation, which is an international body that oversees all different types of cat competitions, they've actually banned all Russian breeds from their competitions as a way to, I guess, do their part. But it makes for a weird headline, but I guess like every industry has some way that they can contribute to this effort to like find a diplomatic solution to the problem. And it seems like a good way for people in this part of the world to be diplomatic about it is just not to do business with Russia. I know, and we're
right. Well, it's also turning into, if you currently do business with Russia, then people are, kind of shaming you on social media and all these kind of things.
I saw McDonald's just announced they're shutting down all their Russian
that was
restaurants.
one that came to my mind, was McDonald's. People were calling for McDonald's to to pull their business out of Russia as well. And because McDonald's wasn't as quick to respond as other companies were. So, so that's what you're seeing now, is that you're probably, as a company, as any company who might have any type of business relationships in or around, in Russia, is probably like, we better do something soon, or else people are going to, kind of put our name all over social media and that kind of thing.
All right, now I want to get to the article that I want to really read you that's related to this, and this is what brought this topic up. This is I've been saying Montreal. I'm not actually sure if they're Montreal, but they're in Quebec. But it's a Quebec-based restaurant that is doing their part. The headline for this article that I'm going to skim through, it's a Vancouver Sun article. The headline is, Quebec restaurant takes the word poutine off menu as a way to denounce Putin. This restaurant is called Leroy Giuseppe, which prides itself on as being the inventor of the poutine. So this isn't just this fly-by-night restaurant that's doing this. So I'll read you a bit of it here. So a Quebec restaurant has removed the word poutine from their menu as a way to denounce Russia's President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Instead, diners at Leroy Giuseppe in Drummondville, Quebec, will have to settle with ordering La Frite Fromage Sauce, which translates to fries, cheese, gravy, when they're craving the comfort dish. And here's, they're going to read from a statement that the restaurant issued. Dear clients and friends, this evening the Giuseppe team has chosen to temporarily remove the word P***teen from its trademark in order to express in its own way its deep dismay at the situation in the Ukraine. That's, okay, and then their statement goes on a little bit here. Let me just scroll through a bit. Ooh, Leroy Giuseppe, which prides itself as the inventor of the poutine, subsequently deleted the Facebook posts due to threatening phone calls and emails that it received. But despite the hateful messages, the restaurant says they're happy the tiny gesture has made its way to Ukraine. The restaurant added that the move was not a marketing ploy. In a Facebook post on Saturday, Leroy Giuseppe shared a clip from a Radio Canada television of a Ukrainian thanking them for the gesture. What do you think of taking that step? It's unique, and it has like a bit of shock value. And if they didn't do it intentionally as a marketing ploy, it would certainly work. But it is a cool statement.
Who was angry about it though? Like they said they got threatening messages. Who was so angry about it?
I'm sure it was just like, this whole thing with Russian bots and all this stuff you hear about.
Oh yeah.
It could be that, or there's like I've seen people online who are supportive of Russia. And there's always the vocal minority, especially when you're like writing something on Facebook that's getting shared around. So I'm not surprised that they would get. I don't think you can write anything on the internet, and if enough people see it, you're going to get a good 5% of them are going to just completely destroy you, or maybe even less. But you'll notice them. Those
they're so much more noticeable. Yeah, the negative.
Like for example, like last week when I got that voice memo about the straw from that guy, it's like. On this show, I say like, thousands of people have seen me heard me drinking from the straw, heard me talk about it, and were supportive. One guy, one bozo, writes in with like a threatening message about it.
Yeah,
so similar.
And you haven't been able to sleep since then.
Mm-hmm. It's been awful, but it happens. My friend Christy Lee, who hosts Canadian True Crime podcast, we talked about dealing with haters, and she sent me this kind of like article that this kind of motivational speaker type person had published, and it resonated with me. The article, in essence, was saying something like, if you have any kind of audience, if people pay attention to what you do, you cannot get out of harsh criticism. And the way he put it in perspective, the analogy he used is like, if you have a big enough audience, you could put a picture of your cat like asleep on the couch, and the comment or whatever, like the subtitle or whatever for the picture, the caption could simply say like, this is my cat makes my life better. And that could be your post. And if there's enough people who look at what you do, someone is going to write like, you're a pervert, you look at your cat sexually, like, why don't you and your cat kill yourself? This sort of thing. And it is so true. That's like, people are that nuts. So I get it, but I think this was a nice gesture.
Yeah, I get it too. Yeah, I mean, it's harmless. It's it's at the end of the day, it's fries and gravy and cheese. Let's not get too upset.
We don't need. Yeah, I agree. We're going to take a short break because we have the nighttime political correspondent is going to be joining us in a moment here, and actually this may be like a political special because we just talked about Ukraine and Russia, which is an international affair. Now we're about to go pretty deep into Canadian politics and try to get to the surface of one of Canada's great mysteries. So we're going to have a short break here, and we'll be right back with our correspondent. So, Katie, I want to introduce you. I guess the best way is to say like you're a writer, blogger, journalist. Is that how you would?
Yeah, that'd be about right.
Okay, but we met first because someone was like, you got to check out this Twitter thread. There's Katie, not IE, has been keeping track of every time Justin Trudeau corrects his hair in interviews. So I found the thread and I went through and I was like, oh my God, like she's put a lot of work into finding interviews or press releases where he fixes his hair. What's the story with that? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, so like at the beginning of kind of COVID, like when he would do his little daily briefings on his front steps, there was a time when it was getting pretty dark. Like it was at the beginning of COVID. Nobody knew what was going on. And it was just all bad news. And there's one day, I think in late March, early April, that he just like, it was when his hair still was relatively short. And he just like ran his fingers through his hair. And it was just like, oh. And he did it in such this oddly specific way that like this odd stress, but he touches his hair not just like a one through flip, like he like grabs his hair at the same time, and I was just like, okay. And so I just started following them because his hair kept getting longer and he was always outdoors, so like the wind would come and he would like have to grab his hair. So I kept following them, and actually I think a hair touch just happened a few weeks ago.
Oh, so, yeah.
I'm 2 years into this.
Wow. That is an odd hobby, but I do enjoy it. So congratulations on finding your niche in political reporting. And that's about as deep as I like to get into politics. So you cover kind of the political news I like to hear.
Yeah, well, I always say I know more about politicians than I know politics. And actually, I ended up in the New York Times talking about Justin Trudeau's hair because...
Are you serious?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because of this?
Yeah, because I was always tracking his hair, and I have a funny story about that can maybe relate later to a conspiracy theory that was about Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
But when the New York Times person called me, I thought she was calling me for an absolute other reason. So I kind of sound like an idiot in the interview because I thought she was interviewing me about a conspiracy theory when she was just literally asking me about Justin Trudeau's hair. It was a total miscommunication. It's terrible. But yes. Anyway, yes.
Right.
Hello. How are you?
We are wonderful. Now I want to play. We have two topics to get into. I'm going to play a voice memo that a listener sent in that's going to lead us into this. So I'm going to play it now. Hopefully you can both hear this all right.
So when I heard that Tim Hortons sold or stopped using their brand of coffee and that McDonald's picked it up, my mind was blown. And that was a few years ago now. And it's just remained like some sort of urban legend. But I think you should do an expose on this brand change and the fact that they sold the whole brand to like somebody else and they've been going downhill ever since. But I think you can find out pretty easily, get some proof that that McDonald's sells their old brand.
So that's how it ends. Now, the urban legend that's a good word. The urban legend the caller is referring to is one that I've heard many times. In fact, every time I heard it, it wasn't portrayed as an urban legend. It was told to me as fact. Have you heard this before? Either of you?
Yeah, I heard it before. I've heard it from a few different people that said that Tim Hortons, yeah, or that McDonald's had acquired the beans or the contract to those beans or whatever it was, the magic beans that Tim's claims to uses. But to me, it never made any sense because McDonald's coffee doesn't taste anything like Tim Hortons ever did or does.
But
So it never made sense to me.
I find though, I used to love Tim Hortons coffee and now I can hardly drink it. So I don't know if my tastes have changed or their beans have changed. But the way I heard the story was that when they stopped doing their like baking in store, all that stuff with their baked goods, they also changed where they were roasting their beans or something. And the story I heard is that when they started roasting their own beans, who used to roast their beans then started doing it for McDonald's, and now McDonald's has
Right.
the superior coffee. But Katie, have you heard this story before? Do you know anything about this? I know you're a coffee drinker, or no, you drank weird tea stuff, right?
I drink tea only because I used to work at Tim Hortons, and
Oh.
a quick story about that is one time I was working at Tim Hortons and I lived in an apartment without laundry, and I had to clean my uniform in the sink, and when I put it in the sink, it went like coffee brown, and it just disgusted me. And I'll drink coffee at home, but like I cannot stomach to drink Tim Hortons coffee. It makes me think of sink water now.
Ugh.
But no, I've never heard this conspiracy theory. I've heard the conspiracy theory that Tim Hortons puts cocaine and nicotine in their coffee.
Yeah, I heard that one too.
But your timeline kind of does sync up with. I know I worked at Tim Hortons as a teen and then as an adult, quote unquote. And between those times, there's a shift to fair trade beans. So it would make sense to me that the beans did change, but I don't know if McDonald's claims to also be fair trade. I don't remember anything about that. But yeah, the timeline works.
Okay. I think I got us to the bottom of it, and it was pretty easy. I did a Google search for keywords like Tim Hortons, McDonald's supplier, McDonald's bought Tim Hortons coffee beans, these sorts of things. And oddly enough, there was a ton of articles and blog posts and all this stuff kind of questioning it. But it took me a little bit to find an actual like source from within Tim Hortons that actually answered the question. I'm going to read you a little bit up from an article where it's like the CEO, I believe the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, answers this question. So this is from a Yahoo Life article. The headline is, "No, Tim Hortons did not sell its coffee recipe to McDonald's." So here's a bit of the article. So it says, "Tim Hortons wants you to know that it did not sell any aspect of its closely guarded coffee recipe, including its supplier, its beans, or its blends to its competitor McDonald's." And here's the quote from the COO. "I don't know why this story originated or how it grew to the way it did, but I can 100% confirm that it is a complete myth," says Mike Hancock, Tim Hortons COO, in an interview with Yahoo Finance this week. In fact, he says there are just 3 employees in the company that actually know the formula for blending and roasting the Tim Hortons coffee that goes into a double-double. Again, quoting him, "Our coffee recipe is the most valuable asset in this entire company," Hancock said. "We have not sold or shared any part of our coffee business with any competitor." But that's about as close, I guess, as we're going to get to debunking it. You have the COO saying it's not true, but I could see how a myth like this would develop. Are you two on the fence? Do you think this is a complete urban legend and untrue? Do you think there's any chance there could be validity to this?
Yeah, no, I don't believe it at all. I think McDonald's said, you know what? McDonald's put a ton of like money and effort into creating a coffee that'll rival, places like Tim Hortons.
Because McDonald's goes down to even making their straws like a certain shape so that like pop tastes better at McDonald's.
Yeah,
Like, McDonald's
and look
is
at
pretty down to a science.
to Tim Hortons cup, like from every aspect of their coffee. They knew the audience they were going for, and then they just tried to make the most accessible, best cup of coffee they could that would be mass producible to the the market that Tim Hortons is in.
I think I'm more surprised that Tim Hortons closely guards such a fucking shitty coffee recipe in my
Well, that's
opinion.
what's so,
Yeah.
that's what's
They're
so
like, only
crazy
3
about
people
it.
know our coffee recipe.
And there's only
like,
3 people who want to know your recipe.
we take it because it's available. We don't actually want it.
Yeah, you're lucky you're on the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah.
One of the great Tim Hortons urban legends, actually, I tackled this on the show on Nighttime in the past years ago and did get to the bottom of it. Katie, have you ever heard the story about the Tim Hortons drive-thru in Halifax that if you asked for a 15-pack of Timbits, they would give you a 12-pack with a gram of marijuana inside and charge you, $27 or whatever?
Now, this is funny. I didn't work at that Tim Hortons, but the
Okay.
Tim Hortons I worked at, that definitely happened. So that's absolutely
Okay.
true.
The one in the south end is of Halifax. That was when I moved to Halifax. I had heard my brother told me that we used to go through the drive-through and get weed by asking for a 15-pack, and I thought it was crazy. And then a couple years later, I thought I should figure out if that was actually true. And I managed to connect with a woman who was working the drive-through and actually got arrested and charged with drug trafficking for selling drugs out of the window. So it was true, but she came on my show and told me her side of the story. And much like much like a lot of people who get charged with criminal offenses, she claims that it was actually the one time she ever did it. And I'm like,
Of course.
and then as a thank you for coming on my show, I sent her a Tim Hortons gift card in the mail, or through email. I thought that was cute of me.
But yeah,
There's,
that is also a true story for the Portland Street Tim Hortons in downtown Dartmouth. So
Of course.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to move on to the next part of this segment. So the reason I initially invited you to talk, Katie, is when I got this voice memo about that we had just listened to about the Tim Hortons and McDonald's coffee beans, I thought, that's one of the great Canadian urban legends, at least to me. I've heard it so many times. It's like, I'd love to get to the bottom of it. But then I thought of another one, and I know that this is one that you're uniquely placed to answer, because I know I've seen you post about it. I know you think about it a lot. There has been a lot of discussion, especially for some reason during the Freedom Convoy stuff, but there is a lot of discussion surrounding the urban legend that Justin Trudeau is actually the son of Fidel Castro. And there's a lot of images going around on the internet where their faces appear side by side, and they certainly look alike. Tell me, maybe first of all, some of the background on this. How long ago did you first hear the theory that Justin Trudeau is Castro's son, and is there any legitimacy to any of this?
okay, first off, no, Justin Trudeau is not Fidel Castro's son.
But they look alike. They look so much alike.
Okay, but have you looked at a photo of his mother when he's young and when she's young, or Pierre Trudeau with a beard? He looks like his parents. He does resemble Fidel Castro. So I think I first heard about this about 2015, around the time he was elected. Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes back to, there's this one photo where Pierre and Margaret Trudeau being Justin Trudeau's mother, are with Fidel Castro. And Fidel Castro is holding a baby, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau's Fidel Castro's baby. And the thing is, in the photo, it's not even Justin Trudeau as a baby; it's his brother Michel.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know the photo you're talking about. They're I think they're outside of a plane, and Castro's kind of looking lovingly at the baby, and Trudeau's mom is looking lovingly at Castro.
Right. So yes, I'm going to get into that in a minute.
Okay.
But there's also a very small shred of evidence that a lot of conspiracy theorists hold on to. So during the FLQ crisis, which happened from October into December of 1970, Fidel Castro sent Pierre Trudeau. He kind of like Biden Zelensky, Castro offered Trudeau to get out of Canada while this whole crisis was happening. Mm-hmm. And allegedly, some people say this was the invitation and the start of a relationship of Pierre and Margaret Trudeau in Castro. However, Justin Trudeau was born on December 25th, 1971. So unless she was visiting for like 4 or 5 months, that timeline doesn't really work out.
Don't all politicians have like fake birth certificates and stuff though? You know, I remember in the U.S. it was like, show me your birth certificate. Maybe they just kind of employed that.
Well, the thing is, with Justin Trudeau being born on Christmas Day in 1971, pretty much every piece of media was there. We're pretty clear, and especially it happened another time. His brother has the exact same birthday as him. So there's 2 Trudeaus that were born December 25th. But anyway, so a lot of people hold on to this shred of evidence. The whole thing that kind of bothers me about this whole conspiracy theory is that, like, it definitely isn't true, but it also certainly is kind of misogynistic. It kind of goes after his mother in a way that, like, you know, she was sleeping around, and you know, it also discounts Pierre Trudeau, his ability to be a leader, because apparently he had to let somebody fuck his wife to be able to make a friendship. Like, the whole thing's kind of messed up, and it also happened again during the Wee scandal that happened in Canada. Everyone went after Justin Trudeau's mother, so like again, she was involved in the media. Saying,
yeah, has Justin Trudeau ever like addressed this? Because it's all over the internet, right?
Yeah, I don't think he has, because, like, I mean, Fidel Castro was at Pierre Trudeau's funeral, and there's photos of them together. But I don't think he's said anything. Like, when you don't want it to be true, which it'd be really cool if it was true, honestly. But
yeah, I'd be there for like that kind of thing. But I get the dark side of it. Is it? Yeah, I never thought of it being an attack on Trudeau's mom and dad. I never.
Yeah, and like.
And if he ever responded to it, it would give legitimacy to the conspiracy if he responded to it, I think. Like, the fact that he was even giving it attention.
Maybe he should release a statement where he tackles this. He talks about Ramona Digula and her throne, and then we can just put all this stuff to bed. But there are other great Canadian mysteries. We'll solve them later, but let's wait for the listeners to come up with something better about Trudeau than this. And when they do, we'll have you back, Katie, to help us
absolutely
debunk or prove it true. So we're going to take a quick break. For people who want to follow you on Twitter, which I highly recommend, Katie, because your coverage of politics and the COVID pandemic is a lot more interesting than everyone else's. How do they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Katie not IE. That's Katy not IE.
I don't know, Aaron, but I think we may have just solved an urban legend. I'm quite satisfied with that.
Yeah, no, well, we really totally solved 2 completely
compelling mysteries,
big, massive conspiracy theories out there. We've completely put them to bed. It's a lot of work
there is no debate. A lot of websites need to do updates to remove any references to Justin Castro or anything related to the coffee beans. But I got something really cool to end on tonight. This is also comes from a piece of listener feedback, and it's actually listener feedback to listener feedback that opened this whole world to me, that has swallowed up my week. It's been one of the best things to happen to me in a long time, is this message. So just to back us up here, last week we had an American listener send us a message, a voice memo, where he told us that I saw this thing on TikTok about, Alberta not having any rats. That's you guys should do a story on that. That's a cool story. So we did a bit of Googling on the show, and we found out that yes, in fact, Alberta is the largest landmass in the world, I believe, that doesn't have rats in it. And we talked a little bit about why that is to be. And then we moved on and did our episode. However, when I released that episode, I got a message from a listener named Meg on Instagram. And Meg, I believe, is from Newfoundland. And what Meg had told me is, I was listening to your show, and the segment on the rats in Alberta reminded me of one of the best things that I've ever seen. And she's like, if you don't know this, you're going to absolutely love it. And she just sent me a link to a CBC article that had a video accompanying it. And it is, I can't believe I've gone the last several years without knowing about what I'll refer to as the Kelligrew, I believe is the name of the town. The Kelligrew rat nut is how I will describe this person.
Yeah.
So luckily this video, and I've shared it with you, so we're able to play it and talk about it, but this, I've never seen CBC do this before, but it looks like they were out doing a story, like a fluff piece, as I would call it in journalism, where they were just doing a story about a man who had complaints about the amount of rats that are in his neighborhood in an area called Kelligrews, Newfoundland. While doing their story, like without even exaggerating, all hell breaks loose. And it is so intense and insane that CBC, they ended up changing it so that rather than covering this like rat complaint that this guy had, they covered kind of the insanity that unfolded, and they released like the full raw, or pretty much the full raw video of the whole thing going
pretty
down.
Raw.
So
pretty raw.
Before we get into the video and kind of break down and talk through the video, I'm going to read you a little bit of the article that they wrote that outlines, how this video came about, and then we'll go through it piece by piece. So the headline of the CBC article, and this isn't new, this is an article from May of 2014, and again, the reason it's relevant is because it was in a response to the rat story we did. So the article's headline is "Rats are the focus of a Kelligrew's yelling match," and I'll read you a bit of it, and then we'll get into the video. So the article says, a yelling match erupted after a man in Conception Bay South blamed nearby garbage for an apparent rat problem, but another neighbor said the pile has nothing to do with it. Glenn Simpson said he's put out rat poison, but his property in Kelligrews is still overrun by rats chewing up his fence and digging holes under his shed and porch. He blames this problem on a number of things, one of them being the amount of garbage piling up near a neighbor's home. So that's kind of the background. But what happens is when CBC is doing this story, the neighbor who's kind of being pulled into this story with this accusation does not take too kindly of having CBC reporters and camera people on their property. So what I've done is I took a good chunk of the video and I broke it up into about 4 sections, which really tell the story. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start by playing a section where we meet the man who's actually lodging the complaint. His name is Glenn Simpson. So to set up this video, what is happening is Glenn Simpson is standing outside his home with a CBC reporter asking him a few questions about this rat complaint. I can only assume that Glenn Simpson was unhappy about the rats and the way the city was handling it, that he probably wrote an email to CBC and they sent out like a reporter.
Yeah, he was taking matters into his own hands.
Yeah, they sent a reporter on a slow news
they're not going to
day.
help me. I'm gonna break this story and
I'm calling CBC
and fix it that way. I'm getting CBC in.
And here's how it starts.
Big rats. Huge rats. So that's all I can explain to you. It's just rats.
And have you seen more than one at a time?
More than one at a time, yes. I watched a cat take a rat here one night in its mouth and go off with it.
I mean, obviously no one wants rats in their home or around their home, but why are you so frustrated about this?
Because of the garbage that's around here. It's dumped back there. And if some of this was cleaned up, there probably wouldn't be rats around.
So have you been putting rat traps around yourself?
Poison. I've been putting down poison on my property to keep the rats.
Where's this problem coming from?
Next door here. This area down here. There's a pizza place over here. It closed up. When the dumpster was removed, the rats came over here looking for food. You can see for yourself, there's a rat trap, a huge rat trap next to that building. There is a rat problem here.
So it starts off pretty typical. He's outside his home. He's explaining to the journalist, the issues he's having. He's kind of doing it in a kind of playful, unique way. I find the way he's answering her questions kind of funny. Like she'd be like, she asked if, do you see rats? And he said, I saw a cat took him in his mouth.
Yeah.
It's like he's describing this horror scene. But so far it's coming across to me as they're going to stand outside his house for a few minutes, get a bit of footage, and have, you know, a 40-second little piece on the local news. Is so far it's kind of working there. Do you have anything to say about how this starts?
At this point in time, I'm thinking the CBC reporter is like, what a slow news day this has been, that I'm that I'm in this guy's backyard interviewing him about how he feels there's a massive rat problem in his backyard.
Yeah, there's no rats in sight either. I love. She's just like, where are they?
Yeah. Like this is such a common problem that people just deal with themselves and move on. But this gentleman has taken it into his own hands to get CBC down. They're like, well, unfortunately, I have nothing better to do today, so I'm going to come down and cover this story. And so this is just like kind of a yawn fest at this point for the reporter.
So what's going to happen next is Glenn Simpson, the complainant, we'll call him, he's going to bring us over to behind his home. So he has his house, he has a backyard with a shed, there's a fence. On the other side of that fence, there's like an apartment building. In the dumpster, or the garbage box, I guess they call it in Kelligrews, Newfoundland, for that apartment building is kind of next to his fence. And so he's going to bring the journalist over there and show where he thinks the rats are coming from. So let's pick it up where we left off.
Yeah.
And that's right next to a restaurant, so...
Garbage. Gotta be cleaned up. Look at the mess over there. Look, mattresses and junk.
And that's almost right on your property.
It's almost on my property. You can smell that garbage box. Look when the wind blows.
And so you're saying you've seen them around this garbage box?
Yeah, there comes one on the fence. You sit there in the shed door some days and watch them running across. These people are renters.
What, the garbage there? That's ready to be picked up on the 16th of June. Is that your issue? Is that your issue? Is that why you got the camera on?
I don't have an issue, ma'am. We're just doing a story for CBC.
Well, is that his issue? It's the garbage? Well, listen, you go to hell because you can come back here and talk to us.
If you're filming a news segment and someone comes out of a building with like their hair pulled back and sunglasses on and like a army camo kind of shirt yelling for you to go to hell, it's not a good day. This it's only getting started at this point, but what we just saw happen is while they're standing outside of this garbage box, someone comes out of the apartment building, obviously saw them filming, and she is not happy at all that they're outside poking around near her garbage box. There was some expletives thrown around. She certainly felt that her neighbor should go to hell for bringing the news there.
Well, yeah, the neighbor before they came out is looking out and seeing this guy's at it again. You know, he's probably been, pestering this neighbor over this garbage that's piled up over by the dumpster. And it's been driving him crazy for however long it's been there. And it's just been a constant issue between the two of them. And so this neighbor looks at the window and is like, now he's got a TV crew here and he's filming the garbage.
Yeah. And it's like, we saw her already. She's mad. And it was kind of, if I was that CBC reporter, although the reporter probably has a camera person with them, I still would have been kind of freaked out at this point. It's about to get scarier. When we pick up from the video, when we pick up on the story, the man who was initially making the complaint was standing with the reporter, but when this lady came out of her apartment, he kind of takes off and he's going.
Oh yeah, he's gone.
We'll see that in the next clip, and the lady's basically going to go after him. So here's what happens next.
It's our garbage, but it is getting picked up. Who the hell is he? So I don't appreciate you guys coming around here filming whatever the case may be unless you ask questions.
I can ask questions if you want.
Well, like. Yo, you're already a creep in the neighborhood. So you want to come out? You see how fast you backed off? Come on, you little creep.
We're not trying to cause any trouble.
And I get that. I'm not yelling at you guys by no bloody means. But the likes of that wants to come out. Come on. What's his issue?
Have you noticed a rat problem here?
Actually, the municipal policy was already here. I talked to that lady. We had one when this pizza place was on the go. Now, guess what? The pizza place gone, road is gone, no rat issue. You know what I'm saying? So listen, that dude don't need to squawk. He don't know what he's talking about. And then you guys come over here on our where we rent? No, wrong song. Wrong song.
So we're still not done yet, but that got pretty close to getting ugly. So we see him take off when she comes out. And for one, I absolutely don't blame him because she was ready to throw down with this guy.
Anybody I'm surprised I really got to hand it to the reporter. Like they stood their ground and didn't kind of back off. They just kind of, professionally handled the situation. Like, we're just here to report on, what we were called about or whatever.
The rat thing. But I don't know what they could have done. Like the scene, there's one scene where he kind of takes off and she's going towards him and he's coming back in her direction at one point as she's shouting at him. It looked like it was about to become physical. And they kept the camera on it the whole time. Like, I wonder if it had have gotten physical. Would they have just filmed it and reported on that? I don't know. Luckily, it didn't.
Well, they would have filmed it. It would have went into some kind of piece of evidence in some kind of a court case, assault, this or that. They would have had a whole other kettle of fish on their hands.
Yeah. Just for the record, though, if this had gotten physical between these two, do you think this guy would have had a prayer, or would she have just beat the ever-loving crap out of him?
I think he just would have ran. Like she would probably get a shot or two in, and he would just run. Like, he looks like he's a fast runner, and I don't know why he does to me, but I just look at him and I'm like, that guy can run.
Yeah. And she looks like not someone you'd want to cross. She has a hat on backwards, sunglasses.
I don't take her for a runner, though. I don't take her for a runner.
That's a good point.
She's going to come at him and start throwing haymakers. Just hard rights and lefts with no aim, just all force, and he's gonna zoom out of there with a cloud of rat dust behind him.
Well, let's finish off the video. So there's one last segment. So up until now, she is at full blast, freaking out, yelling expletives, calling him a creep a lot for poking around in the night.
Yeah, the creep thing is she's very specific about using the word creep over and over again with him. You're always here creeping around at night and all this stuff. And,
it's a little weird. But I wonder,
obviously going through the garbage.
Yeah, just seeing where the rats are coming from. Well, here's how it ends, and it kind of ends on a sort of sweet note. So check this out.
You creep around in the nighttime all you want. But don't you come back here disturbing us. I'll tell you that right now, dude. Or you'll see garbage, I'll throw it over your fence. And then call 911. Party's on the dance floor. So other than that, have a good day, folks.
What's your name?
Deanna King.
Deanna King?
Yep.
Thanks, Deanna.
No problem.
And that's it. They end with, she kind of has her catchphrase at the end about the fire on the dance floor or something. I don't know what that is a reference to, but she sure ended it by going down in great video history. That is an amazing piece of footage.
Yeah, the way she gestures with her hands and the way she referenced the dance floor thing at the end, she's always like, it's almost like she's in a rap video.
Yeah.
And she's spitting a mad rhyme at the rap man.
Well, it's funny you say that. Did you know that somebody took this video and remixed it into a song?
Well, of course they did.
Okay, yo, you go to hell. You creep around in the nighttime all you want. But don't you come back here disturbing us. I'll tell you that right now, dude. Or you'll see garbage. I'll throw it over your fence. And then 911. Big rats. Party's on the dance floor. 911.
So I think you get the idea.
Well, someone in the chat, Kyle in the chat, said that she's referencing a Sean Kingston song.
Okay, he's like a reggae kind of or there's a name for that style of music.
I'm not privy to anything new in the last 15 years or 20 years.
Yeah, so she's referencing something that is over her head.
She's referencing that, I guess, yeah.
Sean Kingston fans that are listening are probably hitting their head off their desks. But anyway, that's an amazing piece of video.
It's a really amazing video, and it's a nice slice of life.
In Newfoundland, in Kelligrews, Newfoundland. Like, what I was thinking, like, Alberta doesn't have a rat problem, but Kelligrews, Newfoundland has a very, like, on-brand Newfoundland style rat problem. I dig that. I don't know. I wonder whatever happened to these people. I would like to. She says her name at the end. I would love to reach out to her and see if I can connect with her. If anyone from Kelligrews knows her, I would love to talk to her. Or
yeah,
him.
it'd be great to have her on the show.
Or have both
him
of them
too.
on.
Yeah. Let's rehash the issue.
Yeah, bring that back up.
Let's bring it back up and air it out on Keep Canada Weird.
Yeah.
In between segments when we're screaming at Tim Hortons.
Exactly. Well, let's start wrapping this up. I want to end by anyone who has a unique story about Tim Hortons, let us know. I've done a series in the past that I called it Weird Tim Hortons, and I did an episode where it was different stories from Tim Hortons that were really unique and weird. I'd like that could become like a kind of a series on this show if we get enough people that had stories to tell. And something else that interests me that I'd like to call out for for stories for is I find like weird things happen in gas stations late at night, and I have a feeling that anyone who works back shift at a gas station for any length of time have some like cool stories about what Canada's really like. I'd like to hear from those people. Do you got anything you'd like to hear?
Well, yeah. I mean, anyone who works back shift anywhere probably has weird stories to tell about.
It's a good point.
So not specifically a gas station. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's especially with even older memories of Tim Hortons too, of how Tim Hortons used to be. The things that they used to sell there, the things that used to be really good there. It would be good to get some memories of the glory days of Tim Hortons.
I will end also with a very short update. Last week I talked a lot about my visit with or my meeting with Queen Romana, the fake Queen of Canada. Just a brief update. I saw her. She was on a kind of a convoy with her followers going around the country. Something went horribly wrong in Newfoundland, and almost all of her people in her RVs are mad at her, and they left. And they're like, got out of the RV somewhere in Newfoundland. It looks like they're in like a Walmart parking lot. I watched a video of it, basically leaving her and like two other people in these RVs to like drive them, I think, back to like wherever she's from, BC or whatever.
Wow.
And then it's led to like this big kind of fracturing within her group where some of her kind of main people are now accusing her of bad things that include like, taking a financial advantage of people and such, which, every cult like them, that seems to be a part of it. But thought I'd give that update if anyone's interested. I noticed antihate.ca, they're like kind of journalist website who cover a lot of like far right groups and stuff. They've covered the QAnon queen Ramona Digila a lot, and they have an article or a thread they just posted that gets into what's been going on with her for anyone who's interested. Somebody in the chat, when I talked about what happened, they said like, holy crap, treason, talking about the queen. That's actually the word she used, is treason. In the message that she sent to let people know what's happening, here's what she said. Here's what the queen said to like let people know that the group is fractured. She said, in the time of war, it is an act of treason for those who abandon their queen/commander-in-chief. You may not respect the person, but one should always respect the office in which the person holds. It's been earned, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so it is. I don't play politics. And then it's signed Queen Romana.
Oh, no.
So it's gotten bad.
Yeah. There's some mudslinging going on.
Yeah, and absolutely. There's been a lot of mudslinging. What is the theme of this show? Has it been political? I guess we got
we've touched on politics
more than we've ever have.
More than we want to, maybe. We try to steer clear of anything
politics
legitimately political, but
Yeah, but we went there. Well, until next time, Aaron, I'm sure we're going to get some feedback on this that will help guide our discussion next week. If something like what happened in Calagru's happened in your hometown, let us know, because I would love to watch more videos like that. Aaron, until next time.
Jordan, take a look. It's in a book. It's a reading rainbow.
And the party's on the dance floor. 911. I want to thank you for joining Aaron and I for our Keep Canada Weird discussion. But before we part, I'm going to give some thanks. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing an evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. Also, a big thanks to Katie Jean for joining us tonight. And most importantly, however, I want to give a massive thank you to everyone who listens to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, the show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. But with that said, keeping the show alive is and has always been an uphill battle. So if you want to help take a bit of weight off the show's back, please listen on the premium feed. And not only does it make the show possible, it'll give you more of each topic than you find here on the free feed, as I'm adding exclusive content regularly. So for about the price of a cup of coffee, help the show out and get more of it at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. And on the topic of the premium feed, let me thank the newest supporters of the show. Amanda, TGF, Tara, April, and Melissa, thank you for going premium. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can give me a big hand by simply sharing this episode on social media and letting like-minded friends know what we're doing here. If you have any story ideas, or if you want to give feedback on the show, or if you want to contribute a voice memo for an upcoming episode, you can do all of that at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. And you can also find me on social media. I use Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'm often live on the Nighttime Podcast YouTube channel. So until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte. Copyright Jordan Bonaparte.
Beautiful, serene, majestic. The true North. Strong and weird.